Hi everyone, my name is Owen McGab Inao, and I'm from HYVA, which stands for Hire Your Virtual Assistant. And today I have a guest. His name is Nick De Palma from nickdepalma.com. And you see, I started this series where I've been having a lot of people asking me questions about how does someone an entrepreneur without programming experience actually outsource the creation of apps. And since it's something that is I had the interest to learn myself, I went out there to start interviewing entrepreneurs who have successfully outsourced the creation of their mobile apps. And during the process of doing this interview series, I also came across the need to find someone with design experience so that they can come on the show and share with us why design, having your app properly designed is also very important. And so go ahead, Nick, introduce yourself to the audience, and we get started from there.
Sure. My name is Nick De Palma. I've been an independent creative director and designer in my own business here for the last 6 years. Have been working actually, in the creative services industry for the last 14 years. Practical expertise in brand user engagement across multiple platforms and market channels. Designing for my clients, solving problems, creating business opportunities through print and broadcast, web, and mobile media. And the last 2 years specifically have been very, very heavy mobile. And that entire mobile space, obviously, there's an awful lot of opportunity, but there's certainly a great deal of responsibility in there. There's certainly marketing. There's app development. There's certainly the front end and design work and the back end and development work, and it rarely stops just at the mobile application, and that's where I think I'm seeing a greater deal of engagement with my clients, trying to help them understand that once you develop the app, there's a lot more that continues in the life of that app in terms of the marketing and your website, and just integrating all of the strategic communication through that app.
Definitely. And you see, the audience now listening are people who are given the promise that, hey, you don't have to have programming experience in order to create your mobile app and turn your idea into something that you can actually see it become reality. So they come in to listen to this interview with the idea that, okay, we can outsource the entire process. And initially I told them that the focus today was going to be on how design plays an important part in creating your app, and how you can even outsource the design part of it. But you just said something that I want us to go into some more details. You said that besides creating the app itself, you said that there's several different aspects that people need to be aware of. Can we just dive into what do you mean by that?
Well, when you have the concept, and a lot of people do have some great ideas and great concepts for mobile apps, I like to break it down because clients prefer a more simple approach, obviously, less convoluted, and as much as they try to make it complex, it really is quite simple. I break it down into 3 different types of apps. You're either playing games, you are looking for utilities or reference, a type of app that somebody's going to use maybe on a weekly basis. News might be one of those reference or utilities. And then there are promotional opportunities through apps. Movies and various properties within the entertainment industry will use a mobile application in order to promote, tune in, or audience engagement. So given those 3 categories, you're still looking to basically build a business. And we don't really use the term campaigns as much anymore as we do use the term conversations, because the brand user engagement's along that line. So when you consider the communication that's involved with your company as a business, you think of it as a website, how it would translate into any corporate collateral like a brochure or a press kit, and of course the mobile application, whether it be mobile marketing ads that are being placed within other applications throughout the mobile space. It could be the message that you're creating as you develop the mobile application, and why you're doing it, whether it's a game or a utility or promotion. So I like to tell my clients that they should think of it as starting a small business. just as any business has business cards, letterhead, website. That's just everything that goes into building a brand. So mobile is just a part of it. It doesn't really begin and end just with a mobile application. It's very important to think about how it ties in with your website. A mobile application should never try to be everything that your website is. It's a considerably smaller device, and connectivity isn't as fluid as, say, a cable connection or a satellite T1 connection or something with your high-speed internet. So you want to develop for that space. So you do kind of have to take all of those things into account, and the mobile app really exists as that user is taking it with them. But there's so much more to that. There's, trying to put everything from your website and your business into an app is really not doing enough credit for your audience, for the user. You need to think about them first, and then your brand. What is going to allow them to engage when it's most convenient for them, and the interaction that you're going to present within your app. You obviously can't have instructions on every button, so the interaction needs to be explained without words, and that's why Apple and other software development kits take into account these human interface guidelines. I think more notorious than anyone's is Apple's human interface guidelines, also known as the HIG. I think a lot of developers, myself included, would find it sometimes rather challenging to work with. But Apple does have a responsibility to the user first in trying to explain and encourage developers to design in such a way that users understand this learned behavior, even though these apps have only been around for a few years, really, when you think about it.
Definitely. So you raised up a point of how, because of the fact that you're running an app on a mobile phone with so many different restrictions already, so one has to be really zoned in on what exactly the app needs to do, meaning that you need to restrict the app itself to the core functionality, so that every other unnecessary thing that doesn't need to be in there is removed. So coming from a design background, how exactly does someone who is thinking of outsourcing the creation of their app, how do they design that, or how do they even get a designer to help them design the app so that it gets to the core functionalities and all the other stuff is removed?
I would encourage every designer who's interested in designing apps, whether it be iPhone, Android, BlackBerry, to actually join their developer programs that are available. They range in price, of course, but I think Apple's is probably the most at $99, I think. And once you get into that developer portal, you have an opportunity to download all of the software development kit and, more importantly, the human interface guidelines. And understanding exactly what's expected and what's required, sometimes they're a little different. Those requirements are requirements, and if you go outside of those requirements, you run a very good chance of having your app rejected in the approval process. So it's very important to understand exactly, what you're allowed to do. And it's a horrible word to use, but it's really, the criteria by which you're designing these apps. But even outside of that, there are plenty of apps that are very, very creative in their interfaces. They don't bring any strange interactive elements in there that are really far outside of the human interface guidelines. But a real understanding of what other people are doing, not so much to copy and emulate them, but to see where those boundaries maybe are being pushed a little bit. There's certainly plenty of opportunities to find inspiration online with regards to great web interfaces, and smashingmagazine.com is probably one of the better places, I think. The FWA.com. These great interfaces online can be translated to mobile apps, especially if you're developing web apps. Not every mobile application really needs to go through a developing app store. Web apps are still becoming just getting more popular every day because they don't require an approval process through a software development kit or a particular operating system. So even developing a web app, which is, really just kind of a 640 by 320 microsite, so to speak. I mean, those things are still very, very popular. And you understand the size that you're dealing with, the constraints, and get one of these devices. Get an iPhone, get a BlackBerry, or get one of the Android phones, and just start watching what everybody else is doing. But those software development kits are very important, and the human interface guidelines are crucial. I mean, those things, you need to know the environment in which you're working, for sure.
Definitely. And the listeners listen to this are most likely the entrepreneurs without the experience in programming or designing. So now getting this kind of information in front of them, how, what do they have to look for the right, when they're looking for the designer to help them, design their app? What are those key things that you feel that they need to look out for?
In terms of choosing a designer?
Yeah, to help them design the app interface.
Yeah, that's a good question too, because, starting out just designing for mobile applications, I would get some questions about, well, what apps do you have in the App Store? And early on, I didn't have any in the App Store. And the only thing that I could really present to them were my ideas, my communication strategy within the app, and, my designs, my artwork, basically. And, that's the first thing. If a designer doesn't have any apps in the App Store, it would present an issue of experience or not. But, I've designed plenty of logos and websites for clients who never followed through in order to launch, these various things. And it's not because they didn't necessarily like my design, but, obviously overcome by their own internal events and things didn't happen. So if a designer doesn't necessarily have anything in the App Store, I understand the reticence, but at the same time, I wouldn't call it a qualification, really. But understand exactly what what the designer has done, what their design sense is, what their experience is in interaction, whether it be web or mobile. A portfolio can tell you an awful lot. A designer that's willing to design mobile for you, but doesn't have a portfolio, that is definitely, that would be cause for concern.
Definitely. So what other things besides the portfolio do you think my audience need to look out for when they dealing with having to outsource their design to a designer for a mobile app?
To make sure that designer has a clear understanding of the capabilities of each particular operating system, to understand, in what development environment that they would be, creating for. The iOS from Apple is quite different from Windows, which is also, quite different from BlackBerry and Android. They certainly share a good deal of similarities, but, just understanding the language helps, and, what the capabilities are. A designer that's creating a website for Flash understands what those parameters are compared to developing in PHP. So, very different, but there's still, obviously a lot of similarities to it.
So does that go back to having the designer understand the WebKit or what do you call it, the UI interface for that particular?
Right, the UI interface, or the HIG, also known as the Human Interface Guidelines. I mean, if they don't have a copy of it, get it and download it. If they're not, if your designers are not in the development program for any of these operating systems and devices, that's something that you need to be aware of and be sure of. It's kind of difficult to, there's not like an Apple developer ID card that you get to show somebody, but you can do your own research, and if you're looking to hire a designer, you obviously have responsibilities yourselves to do a little bit of research and look at what's necessary in order to design for it and to develop for it. These days, here's an interesting thing too. When you look at web development, so I'm going to draw a correlation with web development quite a bit, but web developers will have programmers and designers. And a lot of developers will tell you that I would rather have a design that's challenging to build than a build that's challenging to design, because developers know that they're not designers. Designers understand that they're really not developers either. They're two very different full-time jobs, and they overlap occasionally, and some very well, some of them really not so well, and you can tell who's putting in 100% of themselves into either task. So when it gets to mobile, there we're starting to see a little bit more bleed, because you don't necessarily need to know Objective-C language in order to develop for the iPhone. If you have some confidence in your HTML or JavaScript, you can develop an iPhone app. And it's not very hard. It just takes time and commitment, obviously. But starting to see a little bit more of the overlap between designer developer when it comes to the mobile space. That to me is probably one of the more interesting things that I've recognized just within the last year. Developers definitely win the day on mobile. That's, goes without saying. I mean, there's some very, very, very talented people out there. The best ideas, of course, in pre-production, spend the time and it'll create a winning app. Again, it's like developing a small business.
Definitely. So the key 2 points I've seen here, I heard you say, is basically portfolio first. Do they have portfolio in the type of app you're trying to build? Right. And then the second thing was, do they have the user interface manual, or what was that?
Yeah, you can download the human interface guidelines, and there are plenty of resources. Apple, Android with Google's OS, BlackBerry, and Windows 7 released at least the guidelines for all that released quite a while ago. So, all of this stuff, when you enter into the development agreement with all of these devices and these iOS operating system guys, you can get all of the various resources that, there's the interface guidelines, there's graphic user interface tips, and, things that are device specific. Obviously, if you look at a lot of different devices, you'll notice that their operating system, before you even get into applications, their operating systems look quite different. Windows 7 especially is probably one of the more, that one is not like any other operating system out there right now. It's very attractive, and it's very intuitive, and it makes great use of the space and the screen.
Yeah.
But yeah, you get into these developer portals and you start looking at all the resources, and there's plenty. I mean, they're rather large volumes, some of them, and it's not necessarily something you're going to read in one day. And of course, the more you're doing it, the more you're developing it, the more familiar and comfortable you'll be with it, and more confident.
So this developer interfaces, it probably comes with information specifically for building the app, but information specifically for the programmers, and also information specific for the designers who are going to design for that platform, I guess.
Sure. And yeah, absolutely. And you always want to, get wireframe, just as in web development as well. You want to get a design wireframe before you even launch. Don't ask your designer to work for free. That's the first one. If you want to get a sense of what they could present for you in terms of taking your concept and idea and turning it into screen images, offer them some payment in order to put together some wireframes. Find out what their rate is and offer them 4 to 6 hours worth of work or something like that, maybe a day's worth of work, in order to see what their ideas are. Because how they're going to work, how they're going to develop quickly, some of these ideas. There are places online that you can go, graphics that other designers and other creative agencies that have created that are, free and in the public domain, Creative Commons license to use some of these graphics to build your iPhone app. And, all you have to do really is do an online search. for your specific device and graphics or design, and chances are within that first page you'll find a few of them.
Definitely. So, in terms of wireframing, I mean, I've heard people say, there are several tools out there that the person who's actually trying to create the app can actually use,
Mhm.
have the wireframe done, put together, and then send that information to the designer now, so that the designer can actually focus on turning the wireframe to actual, something that you can see that, this is how my app is going to look. Do you
Sure.
think that's a better option for the entrepreneur to just spend the time and sketch up the wireframe, using any
Yeah.
of those tools online, or maybe like a sketch with paper, and then sending that over to the designer? Or do you think the designer should take over the entire process?
Um, it depends on where in the process the designer's coming in. A client may already have an idea and a sketch and a wireframe already together as to what they want, which maybe a third or a quarter of the clients that I get, I actually, they'll come to me with some wireframe ideas and they're looking for me to kind of clean it up. I get most of my clients really kind of come to me with not much more than an email and kind of a written description of the architecture that they want, and then they would want me to create
Everything, okay.
kind of like a sitemap and information architecture in order to put it together, and then we get into the wireframing mode. I personally work in Photoshop. Certainly, can do it in InDesign. The cool thing about doing it in InDesign is that you can create, and you can do it as well in Photoshop, but in InDesign you're dealing with vector graphics as much as possible, which keeps things very scalable and clean. But you can create interactive elements, and then you can output from InDesign as an interactive PDF, and then use that as a rapid prototype. And this has been, I think, where I've been most successful in the past year or so, is creating these rapid prototypes in PDF, opening it up either on the iPhone or the iPad in one of those PDF readers, and then you have a very interactive prototype of what that app will look like, and what it will look like to a degree. Not completely. It won't be as smooth, of course, because it's a constant page refreshing and all. But when you're able to actually take that on the device instead of emailing an image to a client, but we can bring it to them and show that to them in the device, it definitely will help you sell product. And that's where I use it most. The prototype is order to sell that idea. Once we're actually in development, there are lots of different ways to create ad hoc versions without publishing, of course, to the App Store, so that they can, by using the unique device ID, you can send that build, that ad hoc build, the testing application to your clients, and they can review it just as if they had downloaded it from the App Store.
Definitely. So we've covered how, what to look for, the two key things to look for in a designer in terms of the portfolio, and also their understanding of based of the WebKit, the user interface, and all that for the specific app you're trying to build. But one other question I think that the listeners might have is, do you have any ideas of where an entrepreneur looking to outsource the design of their app, where they can actually go to find such designers?
That's kind of a tough question to ask. I would always encourage a client to to support their local designers. I'm a big fan of shopping locally and buying globally too at the same time. Understand that with greater distance comes a little bit more time to develop. Sometimes, not in all cases. Local designers, always support your local designer. But cost certainly does become a major consideration, and you may need to outsource offshore, and that's you can certainly get a very good price on development over in Asia, increasingly in Europe, London, well, England and specifically UK is growing in terms of app development. The top 5 countries right now for mobile app development, which includes web app development too, I should say. Yeah. US is definitely probably, I think about 30% of development market right now. India right behind with about 10%. So I wouldn't say India is a close second, but they're definitely popular. The United Kingdom and Germany and Canada, and these are the top 5 countries developing for the mobile space right now. So, I encourage them to look for local designers. I encourage them to look for people that are already successful within that mobile space, whether they look at the top 10 apps, on the App Store, or the top 100. Really, when you think about how many are in there, the top 100 still represents a very small percentage. So, look at the top 100 apps. Look at these developers who are creating the kind of apps that you're looking to develop. I guess online searching helps too. If you look at some of the creative properties online, Smashing Magazine, Mashable, crop.com is a good one. Creative Hot List through the Creative Communication Arts magazine is great. They're plenty. Search along line. I, of course, come to nickdepalma.com, and I would do my very best to help you out as well.
Yeah, but I've also heard about sites like what's it called, 99 Designs, where you put your ideas out there, and then people basically help to how will I say this? You tell them what you're looking for, and then they basically compete, crowdsourcing kind of way.
Right.
They compete and say, okay, this is what I think your idea for your app should be, and then at the end of the day, you choose the designer that you want to work based on. They're
Sure.
telling you how their vision of your design for your app should be. What do you think about sites like that too?
Well, I'll tell you, I'll be honest with you. I have a personal opinion about it, and I have a professional opinion about it. Because I do feel, it's an emotional subject for a lot of designers too. Because
I understand, yeah.
And in fact, many trade organizations, the American Institute of Graphic Artists and the Graphic Artists Guild, very respectable organizations that are there to, support graphic designers and artists, and they're very important. But at the same time, I understand that, design is a very client-driven industry. It's also very audience-driven, of course, but we're not working unless we have clients.
Yeah.
And, not every client has the kind of budget that Procter and Gamble has when it comes to putting together these things. Rupert Murdoch just published a great app for the iPad, but it cost him, like $6 million to get it going. So
Yeah.
Not everybody has that kind of budget. And I firmly believe that every client, regardless of stature, marketplace, should have an equal opportunity to great design. And there are designers out there that are willing to that are willing to charge a lot less in order to compete. And in some ways, you're going to get what you pay for. However, there are also designers that work in such a way on these crowdsourcing types places. They have created their artwork in a template form. So a lot of ways, they're not always working with original art. They could be, I don't want to call it clip art. That would be an insult. But they do have a library and an archive of material and graphics that they can pull together quickly, whether they've purchased it or designed it themselves, where they don't have to spend nearly as much time developing things. So in which case they can afford to charge less and really make their accounting through just pure volume. That certainly does happen. However, it also tends to devalue a lot of design markets. There's always going to be the need for creative agencies, large and small, boutique, and conglomerates. I don't think they're going to go anywhere because talent is talent. And you're going to search and take your time and find the right talent. And, I don't know what else to say about it. I mean, it is.
Well, I guess to look at it from perspective of say, depending on what you can afford, there's several different choices, So if you're looking for a very affordable option, maybe you can try the crowdsourcing route, like sites like that. And if you can afford, a higher fee to pay for the design, well, then pay it. It's up to the entrepreneur who
Yeah.
wants to do the process. What can you afford? What do you need done? And how quickly do you need it done? So,
Well, and understand too that there's when you hire a designer, you're going to get more than just files. You want a designer who's going to ask you questions. You want a designer that's going to interview you as much, if not more, than you're interviewing them. This is, to my knowledge, a true story, but many years ago, a woman found Pablo Picasso working, in a park and sketching and drawing, and she said, would you do a quick sketch of me? And Picasso whipped out this thing inside of 5 minutes and gave it to her, and she said, "Oh, Mr. Picasso, this is Maestro. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. Thank you very much." And he said, "That'll be $10,000. And she said, "But that only took you 5 minutes. 5 minutes to make." And he said, "Yes, it took me 5 minutes, but it took me 40 years to learn how to do it in 5 minutes." So you have to understand that there's a great deal of practical expertise that goes into design and art. And really, art hangs on walls. And very important to any culture and civilization, design is art with communication and strategy. And that's what we do. So as a designer, as a creative director, my responsibility is to know as much as I possibly can, not just about your brand, but your brand perception within your market, your audience, what you are currently doing, what you want to do, and what your goals are. And do we have to develop new resources? Or maybe I can suggest a way so that you don't have to spend your entire budget doing one thing because we already have resources that can be retasked. My job is to solve problems, and to do that through design definitely takes a practical expertise. It takes research. It takes understanding. You have to listen and really listen to what a client really needs and know how to apply the best tools. A plumber doesn't go to work on your house with a chainsaw unless he's a really rotten plumber. So, and that's what I would say. And I don't mean to insult any of the designers out there that are working on these 99 designs and other places. They're definitely important for people to get, for designers who are just starting out, And I don't want to call them rookies because coming out of college, some of these designers are incredibly talented, but they don't have the break. So this is an opportunity for them, and I wouldn't want to take opportunity away from anybody. So understand that you could be getting a logo that's already trademarked by somebody else. You could be getting a name that's copyrighted, design that's already copyrighted. You can go buy a logo for a couple of $100 from somebody, but you're not going to get trademark research. You're not going to get market research. And you could be buying somebody else's art and end up getting sued for it a few years down the road. So there's the difference, I think.
Yeah, so let's end it on a high note. So in regards to the entrepreneur who maybe now they've listened to the interview all this point and all to this point, and what are these few words in summary that you can leave with them to encourage them in regards to the process of outsourcing the design of their apps?
Think about your idea and your concept. Spend plenty of time on it. Think of it like getting a tattoo. You're going to have it for a while, so it might be something good, Work through your concept, study it, and look around online. Do some research. It's got to be something that users are going to use. I think if you're just going to send news feeds through your app, I think that's useful. But at the same time, the engagement is limited. You're going to get them and you're going to lose them. Twitter, you can go out and you can buy Twitter followers, but chances are in a couple of months you're not going to have those same followers anymore. So it's that same idea that you want to keep the user engaged. You want to create something that's attractive, if at all possible, something that's fun. Fun is good. Everybody likes fun, but something that carries your message. And go out and take a look at what the opportunities are online. You don't have to know Objective-C. You can go to places like appmaker.com. AppMaker, you can build your app for free. You need graphics and you need content, of course. But if you do your research and you get all of that together, you can build your app maker app for free. So those kind of things are pretty powerful. There's a lot more power out there now. You don't have to be a developer to be a developer. You don't have to be a programmer to be a developer. It helps. It certainly does help and make things easier. But the space, you think back into the late 90s when websites were few and not great, and it's probably mid 90s. I'm dating myself here. I'm sorry, but eventually, I remember a teacher telling me that everybody's going to have one, and you're going to be able to buy your groceries. And I thought, it's possible, but man, I'm going to be old and gray. Well, I am older and I am grayer than I. But the fact of the matter is, with apps, they're going to become, and they are now, and just even more so, as popular as business cards were, as popular as websites still are, and it's an opportunity to broadcast yourself and your strategic messages, whether it's a brand, whether it's a service or retail, and it's just it's a great space. It's a great place to be, man.
Thank you very much. I want you to let the audience know how best to get a hold of you. You don't want to get a hold of you and learn more about designing apps and all that.
Oh, well, you can go to my website online, which is www.nicdipalma.com. That's Nick DePalma with Nick without a K, nickdepalma.com.
Thank you very much, Nick, for doing the interview. I appreciate it.
Oh, and thank you very much. I appreciate it. I look forward to seeing more of your interviews, too.
Thank you very much. So we're done. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed today's interview. And before you go, I want you to do me a favor. I'm trying to build my community of entrepreneurs who find my content useful on Facebook, so we can engage, have discussions live right there on Facebook. And to get to my page on Facebook, you go to www.facebook.com/HYVASSISTANT. And again, it's www.com. What am I saying? No, it's www.facebook.com/HYVASSISTANT. And when you get there, what you're going to do is look for the a button that says like, and you click on that button, and then basically you become a fan of the page. It's that simple. You don't even have to leave me your email. Just click on the button that says like. And again, the page to go to is www.facebook.com/HYVASSISTANT. And that stands for Hive Assistant. Real easy. I look forward to seeing you on Facebook. Have a great day.